There we go. Now we are recording. Okay. So, reflections, personal, unique video essays. This is a really good first project of the year. Not only is it a good way to refresh our memories and get us back into the habit of filmmaking, but they always come out really good. They always come out really professional. I've had students in the past who maybe weren't the strongest of filmmakers, or maybe they were new to my class, or maybe they had historically struggled a little bit. And this is a good project that they turn out, and they always come out pretty good. It's pretty cool to see what students come up with. And the neat thing about this is that it's pretty standard the way that they're made. They're all made in very much the same way, but they're all very unique and very, very personal, which is really cool. So I'll talk about that and what it means. So basically, it's a video essay. You've probably seen a video essay before. How many of you seen like a video essay like on YouTube? Whoa, what is that about? How many of you have seen like a video essay on YouTube before? Like maybe you've seen like one that analyzes a film, or maybe you've seen one where it's just like narration with like cool, pretty shots, that kind of stuff. That's kind of what we're doing here. We're making a video essay. And what we're doing is we're borrowing Chapman's famous video essay prompt. Chapman, of course, has a renowned film school that everyone always wants to get into. And for years, for decades, they had this, this video prompt. You would apply to their film school, and you were required to make a video specifically for them to try to get into their film school. And they had this prompt that you had to follow. So I sort of borrowed that prompt. The idea when we started putting this project together was maybe this is a piece that you could use for your college applications or your portfolio if you're trying to get into a film school, because it allows you to make it personal, and it allows you to separate yourself from the crowd a little bit, and give people an idea of who you are. And that's kind of cool. So I borrowed from Chapman's prompt. They've since changed their prompt. Theirs is a little bit different now. And I tweaked it and made it my own anyway. But that's kind of where the inception of this came from. The goal is to make it personal. We want it to be personal. We want it to be unique, and for it to represent who you are. Now, a lot of students get in their head that, oh, this is like a college video essay, so I'm going to make a video essay that's for college. And their first draft is always something like, oh, you know, I'm Carson, and I do this, and I do that, and I'm on the pep squad, and I do student government, and I play sports. Okay, Carson, those are things that you do. That's not who you are. Okay, you are more, ladies and gentlemen. You are more than the things that you do. This video essay is about who you are. Okay, all right. Every other college student is boring the college admittance people to tears with, this is what I've done, and look at my resume, and look at this, and look at that. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. I want to get an idea of who you are. That's what this video essay is about. I want to get an idea of who you are. You're unique. You're individual. This is a class full of very, very unique people. You all have something very, very different to say. So be thinking about who you are, and how you are, you know, what separates you from the crowd, so to speak, and how you think. You have a very unique thinking process. Okay, each of you, this is a compliment. Each of you have a very unique thought process. I want to be able to hear your thoughts. I want to be able to get an idea of how you think and how that works for you. Okay? All right. So this is what's required. It's a 2-minute video. No more, no less. You will be 2 minutes on the mark. This is good practice. This is the only project ever in my class in which the answer for how long it needs to be is not as long as it needs to be an effective film. Okay, it's 2 minutes. This one is 2 minutes. You will be 2 minutes long, no more, no less. Okay, I want you to avoid cliches. We'll be watching a lot of examples of these next week. And you'll see how very cliche these can become if you're not careful. Okay, I want you to avoid cliches. I want you to think about what's unique and interesting for you. Okay, don't be pretentious. It's super easy to be pretentious and talk about your deep understanding of the world. Okay, you're like 17 or 18 years old. Come on, how deep is your understanding of the world really? I mean, come on. Okay, like at my age, I'm still figuring stuff out. Okay, like you're not the end all be all of knowledge and spirituality over here. Okay, right? All right. So don't be pretentious. It's really easy in this format where you're doing narration and where you're talking about yourself, or where you're telling a story, or where you're doing something from your own perspective, it's really easy to fall into this trap. We're going to watch some examples next week, and you'll see some students that fall into this trap. If you are applying to a college and they get a sense of how pretentious you are, that's a strike against you. That's not going to help you get into that school. And just as an audience member, it's going to turn off your audience member. You want something relatable. You want something that your audience is going to connect with. And if you're coming off as pretentious, your audience is going to turn off immediately and say, I don't like this person. They think they know everything. They think they're God's gift to the world or whatever, right? So don't be like that. Okay. You must use your own voice. You're all going to do a narration, an audio recording. So make sure that that you're recording your own voice. You don't get to use anyone else's voice, okay? So there's a little bit of acting involved, just a little bit, okay? Because how you deliver it matters, right? How you say the words matter. You don't want to just be reading it. That's boring and monotone. You want to have the normal conversational flow, right? Sometimes it helps students when I tell them, be more conversational, as if you're having a conversation with a friend or something like that. Okay, again, the idea here is to be able to, I want to hear the inner workings of your mind. I want to hear you thinking. That means it might be a little abstract, okay? This is not an English essay, okay? I don't want academic speech. I don't want flowery words that sound fancy, okay? Unless that's actually how you're thinking. I want what's actually in here. I want something genuine. I want something authentic, the real you. That's what I want. I want to be able to hear you think so that when I play it back and watch it, I can say to myself, dude, that is totally Ryan and how he thinks. I can hear him thinking. And so that might be a little abstract, because when we think a little bit all over the place. That's okay if that's how you think. Okay? So I want you to think broader than just like, this is a written, no, it's not an essay in that traditional sense. Okay? This is not an English class. Okay? I want your audience to get to know you on a more deeper level. I want them to connect with you in some way. Again, this can be a great piece for college because it can really kind of separate you and make you stand out if you do it right. Okay, so this is the parts, these are the sort of the assignments that are required that you have to do. There will be a written essay. It's basically the script. But again, this is not an essay in the traditional English kind of sense. I'm not going to be looking for grammar or anything like that on these essays. You should spell stuff correctly, but I'm not looking, it's a more free-flowing sort of essay, okay? Write how you think. That's really what I want. Some of you might think very linearly. Some of you might think the way you write your English essays, and if that's the case, great. But some of you might not. I suspect many of you might not. And if that's the case, I want you to write the way you think, and write it in a conversational kind of way that's relatable, but mostly genuine. Again, that's really what I'm looking for. I want you to be genuine and authentic in the way that you do this. So you'll have a written essay that'll be due probably by the end of next week. Again, this is a 2-minute video. An essay in 2 minutes is not a lot. Some of you think you need to write a page. No, no, okay? 2 minutes is really short, especially when you're talking, okay? I'm looking for like a few paragraphs. Okay, because when you read this, you're going to read it at a certain pace. You're not going to read it at warp speed, right? So be thinking about how much time it takes. It might be a good idea when you finish writing it to time it, and then you might realize, oh, wow, I wrote way too much. I'm going to be looking for the 3-act structure. These videos seem to work really well with the 3-act structure. So make sure that you harken back to your experience as a junior in my class when we talked about beginning, middle, and an end, and how they're about equal in size. That can be a helpful tool. 3 paragraphs is a real good way to write this essay. 3 paragraphs of equal length, or close to equal length, depending on how you structure your 3-act structure. Obviously, you'll need recorded audio for this. This is your first round of dailies. Your first round of dailies for this project is recorded audio. Aman, dailies are an industry term in film for just raw footage or raw content for your film, unedited stuff. So your first round of dailies will be your recorded audio, and that will be due, I'm not sure when. Consult the slate when I add it. It may be due as early as the end of next week, or perhaps the following Wednesday. It kind of depends on how we do next week and how much we get done. But it's pretty quick. So we're going to write it pretty quick, and then we're going to record the audio pretty quick, and then you'll have a second round of dailies, which will be your video footage, and that's it. That's all your dailies. Just your audio and then all your footage, because it's super short. You don't need to shoot a whole lot for this. And then after that, you'll have the final product, which is the 2-minute film. And these can be really cool. These can be really, really cool. So sometimes students ask, like a student this morning asked, what, can I write about this? Can I write about that? The door is really open. And I'm going to show you many examples, different examples of different students and different people who have done these in different ways. You might write about something super profound and deep. I had a student one year who wrote about how she fell out of a tree at a young age and lost years of her memory. And that was like a big deal, right? I've had other students who wrote about really mundane things. I had one student who wrote about how she just liked being in the rain. And another student who wrote about different types of shoes that she wore. I had one student who wrote about an experience that she had when she was a child at Thanksgiving, and she ate all of the mashed potatoes and nobody else could have some. And that was an interesting story, and she learned a valuable life lesson from that. And that's a good way to structure a lot of these, guys, is to maybe it's a story, or maybe it's maybe it's a thought process, but it ends oftentimes by turning it back towards the audience and allowing them to connect with you, right? And it's about us, but it's really about all of us, the audience as well, because we can connect with them and relate to them in that way. Okay, I'm going to show you an example. This is a great example that I really like by a guy named Daniel Karen. Super talented guy, super talented guy. And he did this video. He has this YouTube channel that I love. If there's time, I might show it to you after. But he did this video that I really like. It's called Walking Contest, and it's a perfect example of, this is like the high bar for like what this video essay could be as an example. Super cool. So I will show this. Whoa, go back. I don't know why my keyboard's clicking around. It's doing weird stuff. I gotta check that. So I will play this. If the sound should be set up, but if for some reason you're not getting sound, please wave your arms frantically in the international sign of distress, and I will make sure that it gets set up. All right, here we go.
You know, sometimes in the street, I would start an imaginary walking contest with a random pedestrian. I don't know why, but when we walk at the same speed, I get uncomfortable. I get uncomfortable, and I feel like the other person gets uncomfortable too. He's probably thinking, why is he walking next to me? What's wrong with this guy? Does he have an agenda against me? So I start to accelerate, but I'm playing it cool, as if I'm unaware of this walking contest, as if I'm actually busy, so busy that I have to walk faster. So I'm moving faster, separating myself from the other person, saying to myself, Daniel, you are going to win this contest. You are better than him. You are busier than him. Go! And then, just when I cross the finish line, I glance back at him, and yeah, I feel like a winner. But I also feel a little silly. What is so scary about moving together at the same speed? Is it safety issues? Intimacy? Individualism? Like, there is no way I have something in common with this stranger. Not even the speed of walking. Why can't we walk together? I think it can be very cool. So...
Isn't that cool? It's pretty cool, right? Super cool. I really like that one. So let's talk about it. I'll talk about it, but before I talk about it, let's talk about it together. In fact, I'll go ahead and I'll go ahead and stop this. Why don't you go ahead and go to gallery view so you can all see each other. And let's talk about it. Let's break it down a little bit. What did you guys think? How many stars? What'd you like about it? What didn't you like about it? Just speak up. Whoever first come, first serve.
I want to say 5 stars because it felt like you were inside his head and you felt like you knew what he was thinking, and it kept like the beat and the words were like really in sync, and it was like really well done. There was some stuff I really still don't know how they did to make it that good, but it was really good. And like the lack of color, I think helped a lot too, in some way. I think it helped with the monotone voice that was like when he was speaking, and that like black and white kind of made the aesthetic a little better.
Cool.
To me, the black and white helped like establish the fact that you're like in his head, and it's not like actually happening outside. What he's saying like isn't actually happening, you know.
I liked how he contrasted like how serious he was about like I need to beat this person and his facial expressions with like the passage that he had about, you know what, yeah, it is kind of weird, and I sort of think about how weird it is, but like it gave it like a nice complexity, I felt.
How many of you have done this before, where you're like walking at the same speed as someone and it's like kind of awkward or kind of weird? The one that I always think about is when somebody's walking, like I'm on the sidewalk and we're walking towards each other. And the one that I always think about is like, okay, when do I make eye contact with them so that it's not awkward, but so that it's polite, but like not, you know what I mean? It's like, because if you look away from them for too long, like that's a jerk move. But if you're staring at them from like a mile away, that's kind of creepy, right? So it's like, I think about that kind of stuff. So I like that. And this is a really good example of something like that. Here, he wrote something about, it's very relatable. It's very mundane, like, but it's kind of quirky, but it's something that we all kind of do. This is something that like we can relate to as a viewer. Like we do interesting things like this and we think about it. And sometimes we dwell on it and think about it and our mind goes these different places. And what I really like about this piece is you can really hear him thinking, right? And this is what I'm talking about. Like we're inside his head, right? Like we can actually hear his thought process. And I feel like I know him so much better just from this 2-minute video. Like I feel like I'm in his head and I understand how he thinks and I have an understanding of who he is and what kind of a personality he is. And he's kind of fun and he's kind of humorous and he's kind of quirky, but he's also like kind in a way and like thinking about stuff, because at the end he turns this all around and he's talking about like connection with other people, and it becomes empathetic in a way, right? Where he's like, well, why do we do that? Like, why do I have to be like that? Why can't I just connect with other people? Like, why can't I have something in common with the random person on the street? Like, what is it that makes me feel that way? And it turns that question back to the audience in a really powerful way. And that's a good formula to follow if you're struggling with writing stuff. You can oftentimes do something similar to this, where you're addressing a sort of a thought or a question in some way, and then you kind of come to not necessarily a conclusion, but you kind of turn it back towards the audience to leave them with the question. And that can be a good way to kind of end it if you're struggling with how to end your particular video essay. Other things that stood out to you, anyone else?
I like the kind of, like the way it was so dramatic for something that's really like kind of mundane and dumb. Like the editing was like so high paced and everything was like intense and the black and white and the angles, but you're just like walking with someone. Like it's not an actual serious thing that's going on. So the kind of dramatics of it for something that really doesn't mean anything, I thought was really good.
That's an excellent observation. And this is a great example of the power of visual film and editing, right? What's going on here? You got people walking down the street. How exciting can you really make that? Well, he made it really exciting, like really exciting. And part of that's the soundtrack and the upbeat tempo. Nikki loved it. She was like dancing around during the whole thing, right? But like it's all of that coming together, and that's the power of film, right? That's the power of video editing. We talked about this last year when you were juniors, right? The tempo of editing and how it feels. When he's talking about the contest and he's in that contest, the editing matches that tempo and that speed. So we feel like we're part of that race. We feel like we're involved. On the other hand, when he stopped at the street corner, waiting for the light to change, and it's building, and it's just sort of that dramatic tension while he's waiting, and he's waiting, and he's waiting, and he's like, yeah, like, I'm gonna beat this guy. I'm better than him. I'm busier than him, right? And that moment was building, and the crescendo of the music and all that kind of stuff. The editing was slow, right? It matched that to help build the suspense. And then the light change, you saw the light change, and it was go, right? That was the word, go. And then everything started editing fast, and the music started going quick again. And that's a great example of how you edit from a technical perspective, how you edit can really influence the feeling of the film. And we're going to talk more about these sorts of things as we get deeper and deeper into visual storytelling in, you know, a month or two. But just a great example of this kind of stuff that we've already talked about in previous classes, where the editing pace could really make a difference. You also mentioned some of the cinematography, some of the different angles, super creative. I loved, for example, the overhead shot where we saw him pulling away from the other guy overhead, right? I loved that. I thought that was super, super cool. Daniel Koren has his own YouTube channel, and he does a lot of really interesting videos, and he usually films them himself. This one was directed by someone else. You can see the name on, I took the screen off, but it's Vanya Heyman. And I don't know what else they've done really, but I remember I looked it up once and there was a lot of commercial work, which kind of makes sense because you can feel, this kind of feels like a commercial in some ways. It's got that kind of grab your attention kind of editing style. A lot of you mentioned the black and white. Anyone have an idea for why? Why black and white?
I feel like it kind of gave more emphasis to the words. Like you weren't distracted by like all the colors. You were actually just paying attention to what was happening.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. On the one hand, it's a nice artistic choice, right? It kind of fits because as one of you, I can't remember who, one of you pointed out that the black and white kind of helped us feel like we were inside his head a little bit, right? But I think Carson, from a technical perspective, I think this is probably the main reason. Where is this being filmed? Big giant city somewhere. It looks like it could be New York, right? If that's the case, you got a really busy street, right? With a ton, maybe not right now. You got a really busy street with like a ton of people, right? With billboards and flashing lights and a variety of colors, people wearing different colors, bright colors, this and that. If this was in color, I think it would be really difficult for our eyes not to wander and dart to every little thing that we see. You know what I mean? Because it's in black and white, it's really easy for me to stay focused on the main character and to keep following him, because that's really what this is all about, is him and his thought process. So I think the choice of black and white made sense artistically, but even more so made sense for technical reasons to help the story. And that's really what it's all about, is helping the story move forward. He does a lot of cool stuff. So let me see if I can, I'll pull up his channel so you can see it. Hang on. So this is his channel. Walking contest is easily his most popular video because it's just awesome. But he does a lot of these types of videos where we hear his thought process. He does a really good one. He has a couple of really good ones. Some of the ones that I remember are him going into a store, but he doesn't buy anything. And he's worried that the shopkeeper thinks he's shoplifting because he's not buying anything, which I totally relate to. I always like think about that, like when I go into a store, but then I leave without going, it's like, oh man, they probably think I'm stealing something, right? He does one where he talks about stopping the microwave before it gets to 0 and beeps like crazy. And that's really funny. He has this very fun sort of sense of humor. He also is a super talented musician. He's Israeli, and he does these live shows where he interacts with videos of himself, and it's really interesting and kind of abstract and experimental in a lot of ways. But he also has this phenomenal singing voice in which he's just absolutely super cool. But this one's one of my favorites. I think you'll enjoy this one. You'll get a kick out of this. A different kind of video essay, if you will.
Remember that moment in Lion King when Simba was far away and all of a sudden Nala ran into him And in the beginning, Simba was like, Nala, go away, Hakuna Matata. But then they hung out in the jungle a little more and rolled down the hill, and Elton John was playing music. And before you knew it, Simba was on top of her, and she was posing on the grass with her bedroom eyes. And then, for the first time, Simba found Nala attractive. Now, this moment was a little confusing for me because on one hand, I was also attracted to her. But on the other, it felt wrong to be attracted to a lion. I don't know what Disney expected me to feel. All of a sudden, she had these like eyeliners. How did she get an eyeliner in the middle of Africa? And Elton John in the background? I felt like my entire sexuality was put to a test. I was only 10 years old. I didn't want to look at a lion and imagine a sexy lady. Not cool, Disney. And my parents were sitting there, and I tried to pretend that I don't care. And I think that was my first erection. And it was a lion.
Oh, boy. It's pretty funny. It's pretty funny. He is hilarious. I highly recommend his YouTube channel. A, because he's hilarious and super fun and really positive most of the time. Like, I always feel good after watching his videos. But also because he offers some really great examples for how to put this all together. Okay, so I only have like 8 minutes left, and I'm not going to keep you here that whole time, but I wanted to answer some questions if you have any questions. So as far as these video essays go, we're going to get going on this pretty quickly starting next week. So I don't want you to write anything yet, but I just want you to be thinking about it, kind of formulating some ideas, maybe take a few notes about the kinds of things you could discuss. And again, this could be like anything, you know, like this, it can be super mundane. It could be something really deep and profound. So I'll give you some examples of students in the past. I had one student who wrote about her self-confidence and how she felt like people didn't like her, and that she felt like she was losing herself in her mind and spiraling and all this kind of stuff. And that was really vulnerable for her, but it was really cool and powerful. I had one student who had a medical issue that hurt him in social ways. It made his interactions difficult. And he was self-conscious about that, and he made his video essay about it. And what was super cool about that is not only was it really good and personal and like vulnerable, and just good, but the other students in the class just loved it, and they got to see him in a different perspective, in a different way that they didn't see him before. They understood him in ways they hadn't understood him before. And after that, he was different. He was more confident, and the people in the class were more supportive of him, and there was a greater camaraderie, a greater connection in the classroom, and that was really, really cool to see. And we've had a lot of silly, mundane ones. I had one student who wrote about running and how why am I always running? I hate running. Running is the worst. Why am I always doing this? And then he filmed his footage as if he was running. And that was really, really cool. And it came out, and it was funny, and it came out good. I had one student who struggled in my class a lot, but did a good video essay and did one on how he is always talking to strangers and how other people think that's really weird and strange, but he feels like compelled to make new connections with the people that he interacts with. So he shot himself on a train talking to strangers and stuff. So you can go any way you want with this. There's no wrong way to do it as long as you follow the basic parameters. You have to have some narration. You have to use your own voice to do that narration. And you want the 3-act structure because it's an effective way to storytell. But that's pretty much it. You can kind of do anything else you want. The visuals are really up to you. The Chapman prompt used to say that you were not allowed to appear in your own video. I don't care if you appear in your own video, but you don't have to appear in your own video either. You can certainly shoot someone else or other things. I've had some students who had no people ever appear in their video, and they did it very abstractly with objects and colors and and different visual elements in an artistic sort of symbolic experimental kind of way. So if that works for you, you can do that as well. So just be thinking about it. Don't worry about creating anything yet. Don't worry about writing anything yet, other than just maybe jotting down a few brief thoughts. We'll have more of an opportunity to discuss this and develop your ideas next week, but I wanted to introduce it today so that you can kind of start the gears rolling a little bit. Any questions that I can answer for any of you? You feeling okay about it? Justin,
I have
yeah.
a question. So I was just doing some like deep thinking in my head right now,
Okay.
and I was thinking I would maybe like to do like a song for my essay instead. And
Okay, it has been done. I've had a couple of students do it before in the past with ranging levels of success. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I'll say this much: the important thing to me is that it's a video essay, so there's enough content there that we can hear the words that you're saying, and that we get an idea of you and who you are and your thought process. So I wouldn't write a song about something that wouldn't allow us to sort of get into your head a little bit. Does that make sense?
my idea was to kind of just like jot down some stuff that I'm thinking in the moment, just like a list of things that I'm thinking, and then I would try to like make lyrics out of it and then rap it.
I'm not saying no.
Okay.
You'll have an opportunity to kind of run it by us. You'll submit a draft of your written stuff to me. So there's a lot of opportunities for us to look at it and say, hey, this is really working. Let's go with it. Or you know what, this probably isn't working as well as we'd hoped. Maybe we'll try this for something else, kind of a thing.
Cool.
Yeah. Any other questions that I can answer for you guys? Okay, guys, it's been great to see you. I'm not going to keep you here any longer. I will see you on Friday at this allotted time. Come in a window. It'll be good to see you face to face, and we'll get you your equipment and all that kind of stuff. You do have one assignment, if you haven't seen it already. You do have one assignment that's on the Canvas. It's really simple. I think you just have to email me. I think it's worth a point. So make sure that you do it. But it's super simple. Make sure that you find it on there and you have access to it. Cool. Farewell, folks. It's wonderful to see you. I've missed you. I hope you're excited about the school year. We're going to make this cool. It'll be cool. We'll make it work.
Nice to see you, Mr. T. Bye.
Mr.
Mr.
T,
T.
thank
Take
you.
care.
Bye, everyone.
Good to see you.
Thanks, Mr. T.
See you guys.